Okay. Yeah.
Hello and welcome everybody. Afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of Cabinet on the 15th of April. To begin the meeting, I intend to start with a minute's silence of Cabinet. And this is in memory of His Royal Highness, the Duke, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, who passed away recently. So could I ask you to turn your screens blank, please, and to mute your microphones? Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. Okay, so we'll do the first item on the agenda now, which is apologies for absence. Mr. Evans, do we have any apologies for today?
I have an apology from Councillor Robert Francis Davis.
I believe we also have an apology from Councillor King, who is unwell. Are there any other apologies for today? Okay, if not, then we'll go on to disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest. Are there any disclosures to declare today? So, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Leader. Item 7, Local Authority Governor Appointments. I have dispensation from the Standards Committee to stay, speak, but not vote.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you. I have personal prejudicial interest in item 13.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? If not, then we'll move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 1 to 8. I've not been notified of any errors or amendments. So can I ask someone to move them as a true record, please?
Happy to move.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you. All in agreement? Okay, thank you very much. That's agreed. If we move then to item 4, announcements of the Leader of Council, I have no announcements today. So we'll move on to public question time. Mr. Evans, are there any public questions today?
There are no public questions, Leader.
Okay, we'll go then to item 6, which is Council's question time. Are there any councillors present who'd like to ask a question?
Yes, Leader.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to item 9 and specifically in relation to paragraph 5.8 and 5.9. I have informed residents of Gossingham Road what is being proposed, and as a result I do have a file of papers here of the emails, etc., which have come back to me, all of which are opposing this proposal, and I have to tell you, some make quite distressing reading. So my questions are, first of all, could the Cabinet member suggest why he thinks none of the stakeholders in Pentagare, Pentagare Community Council, myself, and all the affected residents knew nothing about the 2017 consultation, so weren't able to comment? My second question is, can the Cabinet member confirm what I was told by officers in a Zoom meeting in November, and that is that the pavement on the south side of Gossingham Road is to be widened to create this combined cycle and pedestrian route, and that this will mean there can be no parking on sections of the south side of the road. Now, apart from wanting this to be confirmed, I also need to know, and as do my residents, what sections of the road, what part of the road is going to be prohibited for parking. And of course, this will mean that they will have to try and find space on the opposite side of the road, especially those who do not have any off-road parking. And thirdly, if there is to be no parking on the south side, would the Cabinet member accept that this could become an equality issue? How are those with no off-road parking, who are elderly and disabled, going to manage to cross this very busy road? Now, we're talking of Gosainon Road, and I don't know how familiar you are with it. It is extremely busy. It's trafficked by heavy goods vehicles as well as cars. It's the link to Junction 47 and the M4. We are not talking about a quiet residential street. So my concern, and everyone on Gosainon Road, is if they're going to have to park cars on the opposite side of the road, if they're elderly and disabled, how are they going to cross this road to get to the cars? And some of them are dependent on their cars to get about. So there are issues here, and I really do need some answers. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. I think you may be ahead of yourself a little with this one, but I'll bring in Councillor Thomas to respond to questions.
Yeah, happy to respond, Chair. As regards to the consultation that took place in 2017, this is a very well documented conversation I've had with many councillors, many members of the public and the press and media as well, in that we carried out a citywide consultation in 2017. Now, we carried that out in line with all of our consultation exercises. It wasn't specific. We did not have a specific process for the integrated network map. That was done in the way we normally consult with the public. We then, after accepting the map, that was carried out through consultation, that then subsequently has to be agreed by Welsh Government and adopted as our integrated network map. So the part about a link from Penllygare to Gosainon would have been part of that. I can't answer for why nobody in Gosainon or Penllygare took part in that, and I don't know if people in Gosainon and Penllygare took part in that. I've only got Councillor Fitzgerald's say on that. But nevertheless, that is the map for which we aspire to, and all our applications for active travel are based on that network map. Now, Councillor Fitzgerald mentioned she doesn't know how familiar I am with this road. I worked in 3Ms for 40 years, which is on that road. I'm very familiar with it. I'm very familiar with how busy it is. And our active travel routes are not designated to quiet side streets. They are aimed at major thoroughfares, major transport routes to and from our communities. So the fact that it's a busy road does not mean that we should not make it an active travel. There's a strong argument to say even more so it should be an active travel route because it's such a busy road. Because our aim isn't, and I think that a lot of people haven't grasped this part of our active travel aspirations. I have said it previously that our active travel ambition isn't about developing nice little routes for people to cycle along or to walk along. That's part of it, but that's not the main ambition. We have an ambition here within this authority to make a modal shift and to get people out of their cars. And until we do that and have joined up routes that connect people and connect communities and places of work and places of interest, then we won't be able to make that modal shift. So Penllygare is another link. Now, it's interesting you said about that nobody on Penllygare, on that Gosainon Road, Penllygare, wants it. Well, it isn't, and I've had this similar conversation with residents of Mayors Road. The cycle routes are not for, or specifically for, that street or corridor that they run along. They are for all the users who access that route. So all these cars that drive from the motorway and from Swansea down Gosainon Road into Gosainon every night and every morning, we want as many of them as we can not to drive and to cycle and to walk instead. So it's not just the users. Now, we do accept and appreciate the fact that users and residents on this street will be absolutely directly impacted by any routes on this. And I think, as the leader indicated, I think you've been perhaps a little bit previous in your question here today, because the way this works is, if, and hopefully Cabinet will accept this report today, we then go out and look and work on the detailed design stage of these schemes, including the comments that you raised about potential loss of parking. I can't answer you directly on the specific of the scheme, because what you would have had is outlined discussions with officers prior to this to say these are the ideas that they've got for developing the route. Now, if and when the route gets funded and we are ready to go ahead with it or go into detailed design for it, that's when we will get into the local discussions and engagements and take on board. And I'm looking on the screen here, as Councillor David Hopkins is an example. Goss Avenue, exactly this happened about 2 or 3 years ago. We had approval for a scheme in Goss Avenue, and then we engaged and we encountered exactly the same problems with loss of parking, where we've had to widen the pavement in areas. And we worked tirelessly with ward councillors, officers, to try to resolve these. And in the end, we were able to reach an amicable arrangement on this that satisfied all users. Now, what we have to do, the remit on it is, whereas we can make concessions where we can, and we absolutely will, we still have to make sure that we provide a route that's safe and user-friendly. So there may be areas where we can't compromise. The third question Councillor Fitzgerald asked is about equalities. Well, obviously, any installation we put in, any work we do on the highway or anywhere else, has to meet all our equality and undergo an equality impact assessment. This will be no different than that. So we have to take into consideration the concerns and the issues encountered by disabled users or elderly and frail, etc. So all of that will be done. But it's just that I think where we are fortunate this year, as I will update later in my report, is we will be looking to engage far earlier in this process than we've been able to do in previous years. If you remember, last year, these applications weren't approved by Cabinet until end of July. I think it was July the 30th or something like that of last year. We're in a position this year where hopefully, we are able to present approval sooner than that, and then we can enter into engagement earlier with communities and interested parties. So I think we've got a better chance of engaging early and to get things right within the community, but nothing is decided upon in the detailed design of these schemes until they enter into engagement, and there'll be ample opportunity for residents, ward councillors, community groups to be able to have their say in the design and the rollout of these schemes.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald, as Councillor Thomas has said, we're very, very early in the process, and you'll have an opportunity to influence the scheme. And I would urge you, as the local member there, to contribute to the design of the scheme once the engagement begins, if that's what Cabinet decide to do today. And again, I would emphasise the point that Councillor Thomas made, which is if we are intent on creating a network to try and take some of the pressure off the roads, to encourage people to use bicycles or active travel themselves. And I know you for some time have been quite vocal about the build of traffic around junctions like Junction 47, then active travel routes like this can help alleviate some of those stresses. So it is important that we look to try and encourage active travel wherever we can.
Thank you. Yes, I don't disagree with that. And there are plenty of people on Gossynon Road who are cyclists. But the worry is, this is not a road where there are just cars. You have got massive car transporters. There are huge traffic problems here. And this is the worry that people have. This is going to go ahead, come what may, and it is going to impact on people's lives quite adversely. Anyway, it will be no doubt debated much further along the line.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. I'd once again encourage you, if the consultation begins, which if it does, if Cabinet agrees the report today, then you will have ample opportunity to represent your community's views and influence the scheme. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that is that for councillor question time today. I'll move now to item 7, which is the local authority governor appointments. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Leader. I haven't got much more to say about this. You can see the 3 schools listed for whom we've managed to find additional local authority governors. Can I once again thank everyone who volunteers to become a school governor? It is quite a challenging role at the present time, so we're very grateful for their enormous contribution to education in Swansea. Apart from that, you can see the recommendations. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rayner. If that's the case then, and if there aren't any comments or questions to Councillor Rayner, I'll ask Mr Evans to launch the vote, please.
I'm having a little difficulty launching the vote. I will have to take this one verbally, but hopefully that it can be resolved shortly. It's asked me to re-log in with all my credentials to get access to the vote, so I apologise for that. So if you please say if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Rob Stewart.
For.
Councillor Robert Francis Davis, sorry. Councillor Louise Gibbard.
For.
Councillor David Hopkins. Councillor David Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Andrea Lewis.
For.
Councillor Clive Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Jen Rayner.
I don't vote.
Sorry, apologies here. Councillor Andrew Stevens.
For.
Councillor Mark Thomas.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr Evans. Okay, we'll move on to the next item now, which is the Leisure Partnerships report. I'll take this report in Councillor Francis Davis's absence. I just wanted to highlight a few elements of the report. Members will be aware that this report began really from a WAO audit visit where it was suggested that we have a greater strategic overview of the partnerships and performances and the arrangements with the council and outside bodies. So this report is one which covers the period 2019 to 2020. So it only covers a little bit of the beginning of the pandemic, which is why if you look through the report, you'll see that some of the numbers still look relatively healthy. It's also the first year of the arrangements for Freedom Leisure in terms of the running of the leisure services that we have. So just a couple of facts and figures to draw out. In terms of the Wales National Pool, even though we had an element of furloughing going on and an element of the pandemic affecting part of these figures, performance was only around 140,000 worse than the year before. And members will know that there was an extra 70,000 that we agreed for support of the National Pool earlier. Visitor numbers were down around 42% on the previous year. And again, that is accounted for, obviously, in the restrictions and constraints that were applied to facilities like this during the year. In terms of freedom, we are in the management fee is in line with the 2-year contract position of 1.9 million. Significant improvements in facility is progressing. There's around £5 million, as you know, to be invested in those facilities. Visitor numbers for the period were just short of 2 million. And I think that's an indication of the success of the way in which the Freedom Leisure arrangements are working. Gym membership as of the 31st of last year stood at 9,000, just over 9,000 members, an increase of 14% from the year before. So again, in terms of the Freedom Leisure arrangements, they, despite the pandemic, seem to be working relatively well, and that transition seems to be paying dividends. Members will know that there's a new organisation running Plantasia, Parkwood, now run Plantasia, and they've had a first successful year with 9 months of active trading. Visitor numbers were up, totalling 77,509, which is an increase of about 73% over the previous year. So clearly the investments that we agreed with Parkwood in terms of revitalising that facility and making it a more relevant facility for the city are again paying dividends. In terms of the National Waterfront, again, numbers are slightly down this year for that period in the National Waterfront Museum, declining from 265,000 from 285,000 the previous year, which again is accounted for in terms of the restrictions that were in place. And then finally, just to pull out the tennis and bowls, we don't have direct association with the operations of those and therefore there is little to report on them because they are now in stable arrangements, most on a peppercorn leaf. So again, happy to take any questions, but it is one which is a report reflecting the early part of the pandemic and mostly the year before that. So again, I think when we come to report this coming year, obviously members will see a significant difference as a result of the pandemic. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Leader. I think this is an opportune moment to place on record thanks for the excellent support Plantasia and the National Maritime Museum, and indeed the National Swimming Pool, have provided for our schools in providing educational visits, educational packaging, and also supporting the important Welsh Government Learn to Swim programme in primary schools. And indeed, I think we have to mention, as we entered the lockdown period in this report, Plantasia and the National Waterfront Museum did an excellent job in providing additional learning materials online to support families and children who are unable to go to school. So my many thanks to those organisations.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rayner. And it's a very good point in terms, especially about the Learn to Swim, which saw a 20% increase with nearly 2,000 Learn to Swim users enrolled as part of that year's programme. So again, a significant uplift in figures, which is really, really good. So yes, we'll pass those comments on to the department. If there are no other questions or comments, if I could ask Mr. Evans to go to the vote again, please.
This is a for information item, Leader.
Just for information, okay. We'll note that then. We'll now move to item 9, which is the Local Transport Fund. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a joint report by both myself and Councillor Andrea Lewis. It covers the Local Transport Fund, Ultra Low Emission Vehicle Transformation Fund, and Active Travel Fund grants, 21-22. So I will cover the Local Transport Fund and the Active Travel Fund, and then if you're comfortable, I can hand over then to Councillor Andrea Lewis to do the ultra low emissions part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. And again, apologies to Councillor Lewis. I know it's a joint report, so I'll take you one at a time in the order on the report.
Right, okay. This report seeks to receive the approval of Cabinet for the funding applications within and seek delegated approval upon receipt of grant award letter to Director and Cabinet Member for expenditure on the associated projects in 21-22. Since this report was submitted, the Welsh Government have issued the grant funding awards, and as a result, I will verbally update the report and advise Cabinet of the outcome of the grant applications for each of the projects. The funding bids were submitted to Welsh Government on the 29th of January 21, and with early notification of the outcome and subject to the approval of Cabinet, the projects will benefit from almost the full financial year for delivery. And that's the point I was trying to make to Councillor Fitzgerald. We are much earlier in the process this year, so that will allow more time for this local discussion and engagement. The Council submitted 11 bids totalling 13,913,000 as outlined in 2.1 and Table 1 of the report. Welsh Government have subsequently awarded a total of 6,104,000 across the 3 transport funds for 21-22. Following the structure of the report, I will outline the scheme and provide a verbal update on the outcome of each for the Local Transport Fund. The first scheme in 3.2 is the South West Wales Metro, which is a regional scheme supported by the 4 South West Wales local authorities. The scheme has been awarded full funding of 677,000, which will allow the continued development and progression of the Metro concept and the various business cases highlighted in 3.4. The Baldwin's Bridge scheme, as described in 3.5 and 3.6, did not receive an allocation from Welsh Government for this year. However, continues to be supported by Welsh Government with work ongoing to secure the required land to allow progression to delivery in future years. Point 3.9 details the Northern City Link Sustainable Transport Corridor scheme. Welsh Government elected to fund only the Davati interchange element of this scheme, summarised in 3.11, awarding £902,000 to further the development and design of this junction reconfiguration, seeking to make improvements to this busy and prominent point of entry to the city centre. This funding will also enable the construction of a new shared use path adjacent to Devati Street, west of Devati Junction, linking with the shared use path we already have on Orchard Street. The next scheme listed under 3.20 contains a number of projects to form the Sustainable Transport Improvements Package. This scheme has secured full funding from the Welsh Government of £455,000 and will enable feasibility and development of the projects listed under 3.24. Feasibility and design will be undertaken for public transport interchanges at Gowerton and Pontedilais. Alternative park and ride provision will be examined alongside feasibility of a bus corridor through Swansea Enterprise Park. Cycle parking at key transport hubs will also be delivered and the implementation of enhanced park and share signage adjacent to junction 46 of the M4 will seek to further awareness of the Velindre Park and Share site. The South West Wales Metro Swansea Valley Bus Pilot Project received a full allocation of £180,000 to continue this pilot project led by Transport for Wales. The project outlines in 3.25 will seek to develop design proposals for bus interchanges in Morrison and Mumbles alongside the continued assessment of bus corridor infrastructure improvements. It might be easier, Chair, if I then continue with and then leave the end to Councillor Lewis. Active Travel Fund, the Welsh Government has allocated £50 million across Wales from the Active Travel Fund across Wales in 2022 and has since advised that a further £20 million will follow in year. Swansea Council submitted bids totalling £6,183,000 for this coming year, with the Welsh Government ultimately awarding £3,324,000. 3 packages were submitted by Swansea Council to the Welsh Government for consideration. A summary map can be found under Appendix L in the report. The first package submitted was the Swansea Northern Strategic Route as described in 5.3. The Welsh Government ultimately awarded £624,000 to this package, which will enable the construction of a new shared use path adjacent to Claresmont Road between the recently completed A48 link and the DVLA. Partial allocations were awarded to continue design of Pontedilais link, Pontedilais public transport link and the Penllygate to Gorsainon route. The second package, City Centre Links, describes in point 5.12 received an allocation of £702,000 from the Welsh Government. This will enable construction to continue to deliver Town Hill Northern Link to completion stage. A partial allocation was received for the Penllygate to Forest Fark route, enabling continued design and surveys to be carried out along the proposed route. The third package, Swansea Valley Links, outlined in points 5.17 has returned an allocation from the Welsh Government of £801,000. This will enable the construction of Morrison South Link as described in point 5.21, greatly enhancing access to the existing off-road network for the communities of Morrison. The funding will also enable the construction of a shared use path adjacent to JC Road, providing a dedicated off-road route connected to the nearby existing network. In addition, partial allocations were also received to undertake surveys and design of a route adjacent to Upper Forest Way and for Morriston North Link. Finally, the Welsh Government allocates every local authority in Wales a proportionate core allocation from the Active Travel Fund to undertake feasibility, design and minor works. This year, Swansea Council has been awarded £1.197 million and a core allocation to undertake these activities as described in point 5.27. A brief description of each of the schemes is contained in the report. It is important to note that many of the schemes will assess feasibility and design based on the alignment for the route that was subject to public consultation as part of the integrated network map development in 2017. That's the verbal update, Chair. I know it's a lot to take in, but it is, recent news, and that's something that we will be going out and discussing and engaging with ward councillors as soon as possible. That just leaves me then to introduce the next part to Councillor Lewis.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Thomas. Obviously, I warmly welcome the investment in active travel routes and encouraging people to walk and cycle. The other side to that, of course, is trying to encourage people into zero-emission vehicles to try and tackle air quality. And so in relation to that, to the Ultra-Low Emission Vehicle Transformation Fund, I'm also pleased to report that since the publication of this Cabinet report, we've received the grant award letter confirming that Welsh Government has awarded full funding for the scheme submitted to this fund for 2021-22. We've received £426,000 of grant funding for electric vehicle charging infrastructure Phase 1B. Cabinet will recall that we've already endorsed and approved Phase 1A, which is almost ready to go. So this will greatly enhance the network. This project particularly will enable the delivery of 44 fast charge points at 15 sites across the City and County of Swansea, as outlined in point 4.3. The delivery of charge points is, of course, subject to connection costs to the grid being as anticipated. So the caveat being, if a site is deemed financially unviable, an alternative site would be proposed and ward members will be fully consulted. This EV charging infrastructure will be supplemented by an electric vehicle charging hubs promotion package, as outlined in 4.4. This will support the promotion of the charge points available and information to encourage Swansea residents to transition to electric vehicles. £140,000 worth of funding has been secured to support electric vehicle charge points in 2 of our new city centre car parks that form part of the Swansea Central Regeneration Charging Hub. An additional 25 charge points will be installed across the 2 new car parks. And finally, we've received funding to develop a rapid charging hub concept for the city centre. This project will seek to identify where a rapid charging hub could be best located, establish where the capacity exists to facilitate it, and we will be engaging with local private hire and hackney carriage operators to ensure a rapid charging hub would meet a wide range of users' needs in the future, with the hope of encouraging taxi companies to make the move towards EV. Finally, I would like to add my thanks to Councillor Mark Thomas. Due to the majority of charging pillars being installed in council-run car parks, we have worked very closely on the map and locations to ensure an equitable spread across the City and County of Swansea. And I'd like to add my thanks to the report author, Chloe Lewis, for pulling together this excellent bid in just a number of weeks in order to meet the deadline for the grant submissions. So, Chair, that just leaves me, if Councillor Thomas is happy to move the report, I'm very happy to second the report, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, before we do that, then I'll go to Councillor Rayner. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, and can I thank the 2 Cabinet members? It's been really useful seeing the package as a whole, not put into different compartments and portfolios, because the package as a whole really shows there is a clear and funded route which will deliver cleaner air and more health and economic gains. Individually, I think we've all been aware that not every off-road route will actually end up at each individual's front gate or door. So it's really good that there is funding coming on stream so that the roads, by that I mean the highways predominantly used by motorised traffic, can be reviewed so that they become safer places for all users, pedestrians, cyclists, and also mobility scooters for those with disabilities. I think that is really, really good news. The Cabinet members will both know that I have often banged on about a code of conduct for shared uses, because the recent phenomenal growth in cycling has been very much led by sport and racing, which has often put us into conflict with people who are walking. I think this is very much aimed at getting people out of cars to do journeys which can be done on foot or on bike to everyone's benefit. And I'm especially pleased to see in paragraph 530 that there is emphasis on the share and care programme on the routes to ensure that we all treat everyone with respect and that the slowest and the weakest have to be protected, both on motorised roads and also on shared use non-motorised routes. So thank you again for bringing this. I think it is a real major step forward, and I think it's the package as a whole makes that very clear. These are not just one-off, it is a whole council policy. Congratulations to everybody who's worked on this.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner, and I'd like to add my thanks as well. I think we were very lucky last year to get substantial allocations to enhance the cycle network, and the further funding that's been made available today can only be to the benefit of our aims as a council in terms of getting people out of cars and encouraging active travel, more cycling and more healthy activities. And again, Councillor Lewis, in terms of the electric charging network, very, very pleased to see that expanding and look forward to seeing that network up and running, especially in and around the city centre, where as the numbers of people visiting our city centre grow, we hope more of them will choose to come either by public transport or by cleaner modes of transport. So that is a really good opportunity. So thank you both. If I now hand back to you, do you want to formally move and second the report?
Yes, Councillor Lewis indicated she was happy to second, so I'm happy to formally move the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much.
Happy to formally second, Chair.
Thank you very much. So Mr. Evans has now launched the vote, so if you could cast your vote, please.
Sorry, Leader, I need to vote verbally. I haven't had the vote.
Give it a moment. Okay, if you can raise your hands if you haven't received the poll, and I will take your votes verbally. So, Councillor Andrea Lewis.
4.
And anybody else? I seem to be one down. Give me a moment. I do seem to be one person down here. Just checking. Apologies for this. Yeah, I only got votes from Councillor David Hopkins, Andrew Stevens, Clive Lloyd, Louise Gibbard, Mark Thomas, Rob Stewart, Jen Rayner and Andrea Lewis. There's one missing, I believe, there. No.
Well, it's only Councillor Pugh or Councillor Gibbard that can vote, so... I
know that. I just, okay, I think I'm one down, but okay, if I read your name, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. So that's carried. Thank you both. We'll move now to item 10, which is the Local Transport Network Capital Grant 2021. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's me again. Just before I do start with this report, it's remiss of me. I mean, Councillor Lewis mentioned the author of the report that we just went through is Chloe. I'd like to add my thanks as well, and to all the officers, the people who are putting together these bids for active travel, not only putting them together, then to go out and design them and implement the schemes, massive amounts of money with small dedicated teams, and without them and their approach and attitude in carrying out these schemes, we wouldn't have made the progress we have and continue to do so. So my heartfelt thanks to all of those as well. So right on this report, FPR 7 Local Transport Network Fund Grant, Chair. The purpose of this report is for Cabinet to note the reduction in the grant funding award for the Local Transport Network Fund 2021. Reduction in monies, and seek approval for expenditure on the associated projects. The report provides an overview of the sole project funded, the South West Wales Metro Bus Pilot Corridor. which was previously approved by Cabinet on the 16th of July 2020. This is a Transport for Wales pilot project, as described in point 1.6, and as a result of a number of work streams not progressing as quickly as programmed, an underspend was forecast and reported to the Welsh Government. Point 1.5 describes the reduction in funding award from 400,000 to 160,000, which is still allowed for progress to be made on the feasibility and design of 2 public transport hubs and continued bus corridor infrastructure assessments, as noted in point 3.3. Further funding for the continuation of this project has already been awarded for 21-22, and collaboration continues with Transport for Wales on this project. And in fact, in the report that we just agreed, it was in there. We had already approved an extra £180,000 for the local transport fund award for this project. So that money has already been progressed. So I'm happy to move the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. The recommendations are there on page 62. So can I ask Mr. Evans to go to the vote, please?
Can we just have a second, Leader, please?
Oh, apologies, yeah. Can I get a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the vote has been launched. That's everybody, that's all 8 there. So I'm going to close the poll. And that's unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to item 11, which I will take again in Councillor Francis Davies' absence. This is a report which covers proposals for Dylan Thomas House. Members will see in the report and the recommendations that we are looking to revise the arrangements with a partnership with Trinity St David, that we are seeking a grant bid from Welsh Government for the Buildings for the Future programme to secure 900,000 on behalf of Trinity, and that we therefore then seek a new arrangement for Dylan Thomas House. So again, I won't go into too much detail on this one. I'm sure all Cabinet members have read the report, and I'm happy to formally move the recommendations as on page 70.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there aren't any questions, I'll move then to ask Mr. Evans to launch the vote.
That should be with you all. And that's all 8 are in there. So, and again, that is unanimous, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 12 is exclusion of the public. You have the Chief Legal Officer's rationale for going into private session. Can I all ask if you agree? Okay, thank you very much. And therefore we'll enter private session.